Man, do I have some thoughts about this situation. Check out this headline from Cointelegraph. XRP dump. Ripple co-founder under fire for moving $175 million of XRP near highs. Let me clear something up right from the start here. Ripple was co-founded by Chris Larsen. That's the guy you're seeing on your screen right there in cartoon form. The company got its start back in September 2012. And here's the key thing to understand. As part of Chris's compensation package for founding the company, he received billions of XRP tokens. Not billions of dollars worth, I'm talking about billions in actual quantity of XRP tokens. I'm working from memory here, so don't quote me on the exact number, but I believe Chris received around 4 billion XRP tokens total back in 2012 as part of his founder's compensation package. Now here's the crucial part. XRP at that exact moment in time was worth absolutely nothing. We're talking $0 and 0 cents. The whole reason he got such a massive amount of XRP was because he was taking on incredible risk by founding this company. Back in 2012, there was practically no regulatory clarity around digital assets. I mean, there's barely enough clarity even now. We're finally getting to the point where the war on crypto seems to be winding down. Obviously, you know the whole story. The lawsuit is over, and technically we're just waiting for the appeals to get settled. But let's put all that aside for a moment and really think about what 2012 looked like for someone starting a crypto company. Back in 2012, we're talking about some seriously scary risk here, and Chris has been completely open about this. The reason he got such a huge amount of XRP was because he was willingly taking on absolutely insane legal liability. He was putting himself on the line in a massive way, and honestly, it turned out his fears and concerns were totally justified. But here's the thing. He was brave enough to move forward with it anyway. The guy had the guts to take this leap. And then what happened? He got sued by the SEC, which was just a mind-blowing overreach on their part. I mean, seriously, I'm suing an individual executive like Chris Larsen in a non-fraud case. There's literally no precedent for that kind of action. It just doesn't happen. It was absolutely disgusting how far they overreached with that lawsuit. But that's exactly why he received all that XRP in the first place. There was absolutely no way to predict whether XRP would ever be worth anything significant down the road. So as part of his compensation package, Chris willingly took on enormous risk to hold an asset that was literally worth $0 at the time he received it. So when Chris starts selling some of his XRP, and yes, he has been selling portions of it over the years, people really want to give him grief about it. Are you kidding me? This man was a major driving force behind everything that's happened in XRP's history. He's been an absolute force for good in this space, and people want to trash him for this? If you're one of those people complaining, honestly, just get out of here with that nonsense. The guy deserves way better than that kind of treatment. But before I dive any deeper into this topic, I really need to make something crystal clear here. I don't have any kind of financial background whatsoever. I'm definitely not offering financial advice, and you absolutely should not buy or sell anything based on what I'm saying or writing. That would be a terrible idea, so please don't do that. Look, I don't know about you, but Chris Larsen, who was already a billionaire way before he ever touched anything crypto-related, totally deserves to be even more insanely wealthy for what he's built with Ripple and XRP. But here's what really gets under my skin. This whole idea that someone else making money somehow stops me from making money too. That's just not how it works. Chris cashing out some of his XRP for life-changing money doesn't suddenly block me from getting my own piece of the pie. This kind of thinking is honestly such a defeated, negative mindset, and it's really frustrating to see. When people actually believe this stuff, it just shows they're completely missing the bigger picture. The lack of logical thinking here is just incredible. Success isn't some limited resource where one person winning means everyone else has to lose. Chris's wins should actually be motivating us, not making us bitter. So here's what happened. A wallet connected to Ripple co-founder Chris Larsen just moved 50 million XRP, that's about $175 million, between July 17th and Wednesday. Naturally, this got the crypto community pretty worked up, especially since XRP's price has been pulling back lately. Blockchain detective Zach XBT spotted these transactions and shared them in a Thursday post on X. He pointed out that around $140 million of that XRP went to centralized exchanges or services, which people usually see as a sign someone's planning to cash out. Fun fact, wallets connected to Chris Larsen still hold over $2.81 billion worth of XRP. That's $8.4 billion total. Zach XBT mentioned this while responding to someone who said, "It's baffling how much they have and people buy this shit." And honestly, this reaction is pretty wild to me. I mean, come on. Whales exist for literally every asset out there. We've got Bitcoin whales, Ethereum whales, and plenty of US dollar whales, also known as rich people. There are whales for everything you can think of. But somehow when it comes to XRP, people act like this shouldn't be allowed. It's honestly one of the most ridiculous arguments I've ever heard. Anyway, XRP is currently trading around $3.09 with a market cap of $183 billion. This means Larson's holdings make up roughly 4.6% of XRP's total market cap, which, yeah, could definitely create some serious sell pressure if he decided to move it all quickly. So let's dig into this a bit more. So there's this post from someone who's clearly got a serious case of XRP Derangement Syndrome. The guy's name is Martin, and his post absolutely blew up. We're talking 1.1 million views from just the other day. Here's what Martin wrote. Chris Larson, Ripple co-founder, just dumped $200 million worth of XRP in the past 10 days. Still buying? You're the exit liquidity. He's dumping on you. Think twice. And there you have it, folks. According to this logic, if you're a whale, you're apparently not allowed to take any profits ever. And if a whale happens to be selling at any point in time, well, you're just some poor sucker, nothing more than exit liquidity. That's literally all you'll ever be in their eyes. But here's the thing, this whole narrative completely ignores the actual facts. Like I mentioned in my last video, we've actually seen a massive wave of whales buying up XRP recently, and I mean a lot of them. So here's my question. Are all these whales just exit liquidity too? Are they all just being stupid and making the wrong move? Because that's exactly the narrative these people are pushing. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, what's their actual argument here? Are they saying this is the peak? Because if Chris Larson is selling and it's not actually the peak, then what on earth are they even talking about? Do you see how ridiculous this logic gets? And here's what really gets me. They would never, ever say this kind of stuff about Bitcoin. Never. There are some absolutely massive Bitcoin whales out there, and you don't hear a peep from these same people about that. In fact, I'm going to show you some examples of exactly what I'm talking about later in this video. So then we've got this post from Mark Moss, who's got his own case of XRP Derangement Syndrome. The guy has 170,000 followers on X, and honestly, what he posted is just wild. He says, ask yourself, as the world races to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible, leveraging debt and public equity markets, why would the XRP founders continue to sell? Okay, first things first. Chris Larson isn't an XRP founder, he's a Ripple co-founder. But let's put that aside for a moment and ask the bigger question. Is this narrative even true? Is anyone actually investing in XRP? If you've been following my channel, you already know the answer to that one. Thankfully, an XRP community member named Crypto Arsenal came through with a pretty solid response. He laid it out perfectly. First, Chris Larson is not an XRP founder. That's just a fact. Second, institutions are actually racing to launch XRP ETFs right now. And third, companies are building XRP treasuries just like they're doing with Bitcoin. And here's the thing. Literally just the other day, I put out a video highlighting around 7 different publicly traded companies that are either holding XRP or have announced they're adding it as a treasury reserve asset. This guy's acting like everyone's just shorting XRP left and right. It's honestly one of the most ridiculous narratives I've ever heard, and it's completely unbelievable when you look at the actual performance. XRP has been absolutely skyrocketing in price. In fact, XRP is the #1 performing coin out of the top 100 by market cap since the election. So what's the deal with all this negativity? This is exactly what happens when people get hit with XRP derangement syndrome. It seriously messes with their ability to think clearly and see what's actually happening. You've got people who are normally pretty rational and can think critically about most things, but the moment XRP comes up, their brains just completely shut down. It's like their critical thinking skills get scrambled beyond recognition. It's honestly such a weird combination. From a scientific standpoint, I have no idea how that actually works. Like, how does this mixture of mashed potatoes and applesauce physically get into someone's brain? Maybe it seeps in through the ears or something. I'm really not sure about the mechanics here, but that's exactly what seems to happen. It just completely scrambles their thinking, and it's honestly one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. And then Crypto Arsenal wrapped up his response with point number 3. Maybe these Bitcoin maximalists should focus on getting their own house in order first. And get this, he's actually talking about another post that I'm going to show you in just a second. But here's the kicker. This post actually got a like from Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse himself. Crypto Arsenal was clearly thrilled about it and posted, "Fangirling right now, first ever like from Brad Garlinghouse. Bet he liked the term bitchcoiner most." And you know what? He's probably right. That's definitely the best part of the whole thing. So this is the post that got Brad's like, and honestly, it really puts things in perspective. While all these Bitcoin maximalists are losing their minds over XRP and Chris Larson's selling activity, there's this other situation happening that they're completely ignoring. Check out these numbers. Galaxy just sold 80,000 Bitcoin for one of their big whale clients. That's 0.4% of Bitcoin's total circulating supply. Compare that to Chris Larson's recent move of 117.5 million XRP to exchanges, which only represents 0.2% of XRP's circulating supply. So which situation has the bitchcoiners all fired up? And can I just say that's such a perfect term? I mean, what do you think they're complaining about? Have you heard even a peep from them about this massive Bitcoin whale dump? And get this, from what I've read in other reports, that Bitcoin whale has been holding their stash for 14 years, while Chris Larson has been sitting on XRP for over a decade too. So here's what I want to know. When exactly are these long-term holders allowed to cash out? Is there ever a point where it's acceptable for them to take some profits, especially when their holdings have become such a huge chunk of their wealth? Are they supposed to just never sell, even when they're thinking, maybe it's time to secure some of these gains? Apparently, they're not allowed to have those thoughts. But you and I, we get to think about taking profits whenever we want. We're totally allowed to, but somehow these long-term holders aren't. I mean, come on, that's completely ridiculous. You'd have to be completely out of your mind to think that actually makes any rational sense whatsoever. And there you have it. This Bitcoin sale actually represents a higher percentage of the circulating supply compared to what Chris Larson is doing right now. Look, honestly, I don't even care. I couldn't care less if whales holding Bitcoin or XRP want to sell. Go for it. Take your profits. It's not going to stop me from getting mine. What I can't stand are these people suffering from XRP Derangement Syndrome. It's just so incredibly stupid. But you know what? He's absolutely right about this double standard. So here's the article that covers it, straight from Cointelegraph. Satoshi-era Bitcoin investor cashes out 80,000 Bitcoin for $9 billion via Galaxy Digital. And honestly, good for this person. I'm actually applauding this move. To have that kind of conviction and hold for 14 whole years, that's absolutely incredible. I love seeing success stories like this, whether they're about Bitcoin, XRP, or any other crypto. We really shouldn't be so divisive about celebrating wins. But of course, even as I'm saying this, I know you're not going to get these toxic Bitcoin maximalists to change their ways. They're just going to keep being difficult, and that's probably never going to change. So here's what went down. An early Bitcoin investor just sold 80,000 Bitcoin through Galaxy Digital, and Galaxy is calling it one of the largest transactions in crypto history by dollar amount. They didn't share the exact date or execution price, but still pretty wild stuff. Galaxy Digital first announced this sale through PR Newswire late Friday, and then about 30 minutes later, they posted about it on their official blog too. Cointelegraph tried to get more details from Galaxy Digital, and while the company wouldn't elaborate much further, they did confirm that the press release was legit. Galaxy kept the client's identity under wraps, but they did mention that this massive sale was actually part of the investor's broader estate planning strategy. And you know what? That's pretty cool. Again, I've got to say, good for that person. Whoever they are, seriously, congratulations. I'm genuinely happy for them. I absolutely love seeing people succeed, especially when they've had that kind of incredible conviction. I don't care what coin you've been holding all these years. When you finally decide to cash out, that's awesome. We should totally be celebrating stories like this. And you know what? The same thing applies to Chris Larson. We should be applauding him for holding XRP for over a decade and finally taking some well-deserved profits. Good for you, Chris Larson. That's fantastic. I genuinely love seeing success stories like this, no matter who's involved. And then there was also this other thing, which is actually pretty funny. So here's this Bitcoin maximalist named Dennis Hoddle who wrote, "Can someone walk me through the logic of selling 80,000 Bitcoin at once? Why not 8,000 per year over 10 years? 1,000 per month for 80 months?" dollar cost average your way out. And you know what? I actually think this Bitcoin maximalist is making some solid sense here. But here's the kicker. You know who else has been taking exactly that approach? Ripple Crypto Arsenal, that XRP community member we mentioned earlier, shared this and pointed out Bitcoiners now suggesting an approach for selling Bitcoin, which is exactly the same as how Ripple have approached selling XRP for 12 years. Irony. Oh man, the irony is just perfect. Ripple has been doing exactly what these Bitcoin folks are now saying should be done with Bitcoin, but they'll still complain about Ripple because somehow they treat it completely differently. I mean, seriously, how do they not see the cognitive dissonance in what they're saying? How is that even possible? I just can't wrap my head around these people sometimes. It really gets under my skin. What on earth is wrong with them? And the crazy part is, these are actual real people walking around among us. They're out there driving cars and everything. So feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below. Personally, I'm happy for Chris Larson. Let the guy take some well-deserved profits. If he wants to sell, then let him sell. That's awesome. When you really look at the numbers, it's such a tiny percentage of XRP's overall circulating supply. It honestly just doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. He's not going to tank XRP's price doing this. It's just not going to happen. And here's something to think about, like I've mentioned in tons of videos over the years. XRP actually hit its all-time high while Ripple was actively selling. It turns out that demand is way more important than a slight bump in supply. Because here's the thing. The worst case scenario for supply increase in circulating supply is less than doubling. That's it. The majority of XRP is already out there in circulation. So we're talking about less than a twofold increase at most. And how easy is it to get a twofold price increase in XRP? We've literally seen it happen. Remember when XRP was sitting at 49 cents, we watched it climb to 98 cents, then over $1, then $2, then $3. It hit that all-time high of $3.65. Sure, it's pulled back a bit since then, but I really don't think it's done yet. But seriously, think about that for a second. It really doesn't take that much money flowing in to create some pretty crazy multipliers with XRP. So again, none of this negative reaction makes any logical sense whatsoever. It's just people who have this totally irrational hatred for XRP. It's classic XRP derangement syndrome. And honestly, I'm hoping that scientists and medical professionals can figure out some kind of solution for this condition. Maybe they could develop some sort of ointment that you just spread all over your body or something. I mean, I have no idea if that's even scientifically possible, but if they could create something like that to cure XRP derangement syndrome, that would be absolutely fantastic. Just slather it on and boom, rational thinking restored. Who knows? With all the crazy breakthroughs happening in AI right now, maybe we'll see some medical advances that could actually help with this kind of thing. So let's just keep our fingers crossed that science and technology can eventually figure out a cure for XRP derangement syndrome. But in the meantime, we're stuck dealing with these folks who just can't think rationally about this stuff. At least I've got this channel where I can vent about all this craziness, which, let's be honest, is pretty much what the internet was made for anyway. It's basically just one giant complaint platform, and that's a totally legitimate use. And you know what? I actually get to make videos about this whole situation, so it's not all bad. I'm genuinely glad I get to share these thoughts with you all. It really does make me happy. But man, these people and their attitudes, they're just so frustrating sometimes. Quick reminder though, I'm not a financial advisor, so please don't buy or sell anything based on what I say or write. That would be a really bad idea on multiple levels.